Hey everybody, welcome back to the SuperBake podcast. I'm your host, Baker. Let's talk about stuff. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. So, sorry for the inconsistency in the latest episodes I've been releasing. Been trying to do it every Friday, but been kind of busy with work lately, so it's been kind of hard hitting my normal schedule. Gonna try to do it either every Friday or might start moving to every other Friday. But just a friendly heads up, if it's not out, if it doesn't keep releasing every Friday, then just assume it's going to be every other week. So, but today, as promised from my last podcast, I'm going to do my review for the Beavis and Butt-Head Do the Universe movie on Paramount Plus. So I watched that a couple of weeks ago with a couple of buddies of mine, and just kind of want to give my overall thoughts of the movie. So this isn't really going to be an in-depth review just because it's Beavis and Butt-Head. I thought about doing a review for Jackass Forever when that came out, but I didn't really know how well a review would go, at least for that, because there's not really much in the way of like a plot or anything like that. So I wasn't sure if like a review for this was going to be in kind of the same vein, but there is somewhat of a story for this movie, so I figured why not. I liked it enough, and I haven't really watched anything Beavis and Butt-Head related in a while, so this seemed like kind of a fun thing to do. But just my overall thoughts of the movie, I mean, I liked it. I'm not a gigantic Beavis and Butt-Head fan. I never really have been. I watched them like intermittently in the 90s. It wasn't something that I watched religiously. But I mean, I was aware of them. A lot of my friends watched the show quite a bit. It was one of those things like where I would always hear people kind of quote the show, like quoting Beavis, Butt-Head, and some of the other characters in the show, like Mr. Anderson. But I personally didn't really watch it too much. I remember I had a couple seasons on DVD way back in the day, but it just wasn't one of those shows that I watched that much. I can't even think of, like, I know I watched mostly clips of it, but I don't think I've actually really sat down and watched too many like full-blown episodes of that show. That being said, I mean, I remember liking what I saw. It's kind of funny anymore. Like, I feel like I've watched most of the things I've seen of Beavis and Butt-Head just in YouTube clips. Just some of the stuff in there, like when Beavis first turns into, I don't know if it's the first time he turns into Cornholio, but it's when I think him and Butt-Head are in the teacher's lounge. And he gets into like the snacks in the cupboard, and he eats like a bunch of just like chocolates and like Twinkies and stuff, and just starts spazzing out. And then just for the rest of the class period, he can't sit still, and it's just ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, it was one of those things. Like, I would watch it for like a good chuckle every once in a while. And I remember I watched Beavis and Butt-Head Do America a long time ago, years and years ago. I did not watch that movie in preparation for this one, but I don't really think you need to. It's Beavis and Butt-Head. There's not really much of a plot. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed this movie. Admittedly, I think I probably liked it more because I watched it with a couple of my friends, and we all got to laughing our asses off watching this movie. I don't know if it would have had quite the same effect if I'd watched it solo. I do think, even though the movie's not very long, I do kind of think, at least for me personally, this probably would have been one of those things where I may have had to take a bit of a break and come back and watch it a little bit later. I don't know why. For some reason, Beavis and Butt-Head has always been one of those things. Like, I can watch some of it, but I can never seem to sit down and watch like a whole episode of it. But maybe that's just me. But yeah, I mean, if you've seen a single episode of Beavis and Butt-Head or the first movie, you know exactly what to expect in this one. It's Beavis and Butt-Head in modern day. And they actually have a pretty clever way of how they bring those two into the modern day, into 2022, which I think was really smart on the creator's part. But I'll just kind of go over the plot just briefly. And again, there's not much of a plot to this movie, but basically Beavis and Butt-Head get chosen to go to space camp in their hometown, and they meet this a group of astronauts, including one astronaut who I can't remember the name of her character. I think it's Serena. And they basically develop a crush on her, and they get chosen to go into space with Serena and the other astronauts on a super important mission. And basically, Beavis and Butt-Head are supposed to help. I think they're supposed to help the ship dock with like the space station, and of course they get up there, and the other astronauts don't realize that they're just a couple of idiots, and they don't know what they're doing. So the whole mission goes horribly wrong, and then the crew basically throws Beavis and Butt-Head out into space. They go through a wormhole, and then it kind of turns into very briefly like sort of like the plot of Interstellar with Matthew McConaughey, and they get sucked into the present day, into 2022. So they go from 1998 to 2022, which I thought was a really funny kind of, I don't know if that was supposed to be a jab at the fact that Beavis and Butthead, it feels like very much like a 90s show, but that's just kind of funny how they did that to bring them into the modern day. Like they could have just had Beavis and Butthead in 2022, but I like the fact that they actually took the time to teleport them into 2022. So I thought that was a funny little like touch they put into the movie. But anyways, yeah. And so once they arrive, they basically go on a mission to try to find Serena, to reunite with her, and essentially to, as they put it, score. And while doing that, they run into alternate versions of themselves from a different universe, who basically tell Beavis and Butthead they have to go through a portal back into their universe, or the entire cosmos will be destroyed. The entire multiverse will be destroyed. And that's basically the plot in a nutshell. That's really all you need to know. The rest is just antics and dumb jokes from Beavis and Butthead and the rest of the cast throughout the whole movie. One thing I will say is that Mike Judge and the rest of the creators of this show really have not missed a beat. I was really wondering, because I think Do America came out in like the mid to late 90s. And I mean, yeah, Beavis and Butthead I think was brought back very briefly. I don't know if it's still on TV. I think it ran for a few more seasons when it was renewed, and then it was canceled. And I don't remember when that was, but it was a few years ago. I didn't watch very many of the new episodes. I think I tried to watch a few of them and just really couldn't get into it. But this one, I mean, I was a little bit hesitant because I didn't know how well something like Beavis and Butthead was going to mesh into today's, like today. Like if I was going to laugh at it, if I was going to like it, like how well it would hold up. And I mean, I can honestly say this show was really funny. I mean, it had me and my friends laughing our asses off at several points throughout this movie. There's too many great lines that Beavis and Butthead have in this. It's just too many to go over. And of course, it wouldn't be Beavis and Butthead if Cornholio wasn't in the movie, and he has a hilarious moment in this movie about halfway through. Not going to go into that too much. I'll let you find out for yourself if you decide to watch it. But yeah, just too many great moments in this. Something I love about this movie is I love how even though Beavis and Butthead are technically supposed to be like the two like idiots in the world they're in, I like how the people around them in their own kind of way are also kind of dumb. Like, for example, the astronauts that they go into space with. For some reason, they get this idea in their head that Beavis and Butthead are like these two, like, technologically, like, engineering geniuses because they know how to work this robotic arm, which they're using to do very inappropriate things with. And somehow the other astronauts think that they are geniuses because of that. But they just don't understand that they're just two horny teenagers who just want to score, basically. It's kind of funny, like, how everybody around them, in their own kind of way, is also kind of dumb. Like, yeah, like, they're definitely, at least book smarts wise, they're definitely more intelligent than Beavis and Butthead, but it's just kind of funny how these two idiots seem to be getting the jump on, like, the federal government who are trying to hunt them down, as well as the astronaut Serena, who is, like, a politician in this, like, in the future, so she's trying to hunt them down, too. Oh, my God. And then, like, I love when they first arrive into the future, too, and they don't understand anything. They don't even understand the fact that they just traveled through time, and when they realize, like, they see a sign that has the date in front of them, and they don't even understand, like, what 2022 is. I love that. It's a line from the trailer, but it's so great. And then all their interactions with, like, their future selves are also funny too. Like, I love when Beavis and Butthead are talking to or not future versions, the alternate dimension versions of themselves, who are supposed to be like the two smartest Beavis and Buttheads in existence, basically, but they're still also kind of stupid. And, like, they're trying to guide Beavis and Butthead throughout the entire movie. And, like, I love the fact that the portal they want to send them through, they keep moving it. They claim that they need to go through it, but they can move it at any point they want. And it's just like, I love the fact that the first time they put it, like, I think on Mount Everest, like, on the other side of the world. And of course it's like, yeah, you know, there's no fucking way Beavis and Butthead are going to go all the way over there. Like, they're too damn stupid to figure it out. So then they just move it to, like, this college campus they go to. I love the fact that they just were like, yeah, we could just move this at any point we wanted. And it gets so funny. They're so stupid too. They're supposed to be the smartest Beavis and Butthead in existence, but, like, as they put it, in the grand scheme of things, they're not very intelligent either. There's too many funny things in this movie. So just going to kind of discuss the characters just a little bit. So really the two main characters, Beavis and Butthead. I mean, everybody else, all the side characters, they're fine. They do their job well enough. Serena, she's great. I like the other character that's with her, the I can't remember his name, the other scientist or the other former astronaut who he gets mad because he's constantly being ignored by her. He's like the co-captain on the ship, and then when she's like the senator or whatever, he's like the vice senator or something like that. It's so funny. There's so many great lines with his character. I think is it Jim Hartson, the character's name in the show? I know he's played by, is it Nate or Nat Faxon? He's great. But yeah, it's so damn funny. And it like they're all the side characters are great. I love the interactions Beavis and Butthead have with just some of the random people they encounter. Like there's a part where they first come into 2022 and they meet this family who want Beavis and Butthead to take a picture of them with their smartphone. And of course they're from 1998, so they don't know what a smartphone is. So this guy hands them his smartphone and they're just like blown away by it. They're like, oh, it's like a miniature TV. And then they keeps asking to take their picture and they just don't understand. Like they don't understand the concept of taking a picture with a phone. It's like even the average person probably would be a little blown away by a smartphone, but Beavis and Butthead are too stupid to understand that they're even holding a phone. They don't even get that. And that's so great. Oh, and then, oh my God, one of the funniest parts with the phone is they find out that they can pay for things with the phone. And so they literally just walk into stores and stuff holding the phone out so they can just buy nachos with it. Oh my God, I love it. It's great. Their characters are just so great in this movie. And they have like so many great lines. Like I'm trying to think of like, there's a few moments like in this movie that really kind of stuck out to me. And that was another thing that I really wanted to talk about was just the comedy in this. Like, it's that stupid humor that I really do love it. I'm surprised I don't love Beavis and Butthead more than I do because I love shows like Monty Python. I love those kinds of shows, Kids in the Hall, like that dumb comedy, but like I love it so much. But like, yeah, like the comedy in this movie is just fantastic. Again, I don't want to go into too much about it. I mean, I know I'm going to kind of go into spoilers a little bit, but like, you know, I do want to leave some of the jokes for you to kind of discover for yourself if you decide to watch it. But there was just a couple things that really stuck out to me in terms of the humor in this. Like there's one great scene where when Beavis and Butthead first meet the alternate versions of themselves and the smart Beavis and Butthead, I think that's what they call themselves, smart Beavis and Butthead. And they explained essentially what Beavis and Butthead have to do to save the world essentially. And then they just leave. And then, you know, the originals are just like they're just like, who are those guys? And he's like, I don't know. I think they were like British or something. And like literally nothing they told them sunk in at all. And they just walk away. I think that's one of the things I find so funny about those two. It's just like there's scenes like where there's a character explaining to them like in great detail what they need to do. And they're just standing there blank face staring at them. And the character does not understand that Beavis and Butthead are not comprehending anything they're telling them. Like there's a scene later in the movie where one of the characters is trying to save them from certain death, and he's explaining to them like how they can escape. And they're just staring at him, and I think at one point while he's explaining it to him, they're just going, oh yeah, oh yeah, got it. Like they're just like agreeing with him. He's just like, okay, you need to go out here, like go to the car. Yep, yeah, got it. You're probably gonna hear bad impressions of Beavis and Butthead from me throughout this review, But anyways, yeah, it's so great. And then he just leaves and they don't do any of the things that he tells them to do. That's so funny. Yeah, like the comedy in this movie is great. It's classic Beavis and Butthead. Just a couple of things though that I kind of noticed in this movie that I would have liked to have seen, and I was not disappointed they weren't in it because again, it's not like I had a horse in this race, but like Mr. Anderson, I don't think is in this movie at all. Like basically he was the prototype for Hank Hill from the original show, and he was also in Do America as well, and he had a relatively big part in that movie from what I remember, or at the very least he appeared throughout the movie pretty often, and he's not in this movie at all. I don't even think you ever see him. In fact, a lot of the original characters from the show are really not in this movie hardly. You do see like their principal and like their coach and stuff in the very beginning, they have a brief moment, but they don't have any lines from what I remember, or at least if they do, I think it's very minimal. So that was kind of surprising. I was very surprised that some of the original characters from the original show and stuff were not in this. So I'm not sure why that was. Maybe just for budgetary reasons. Hard to say. But yeah, I would have loved to have seen more Mr. Anderson. Just the one, because I love his voice. That Hank Hill voice is great, and he's just such a great foil to Beavis and Butt-Head. Like, they just make his life such a living hell. I remember that from Do America, where they just fuck him over every second or every scene they're in with him. Like, they break his TV at one point. I think they get him arrested, like at the White House or something like that. It's so great. And just again, that Hank Hill voice just cracks me up, the way he talks about them. Like, oh, them two little bastards whacking off in my tool shed. Yeah, like having his character in this movie, I think, would have definitely added to it. But then again, maybe considering the plot of the film, I guess maybe it would have been kind of hard to squeeze him in there. But I don't know. I feel like they could have figured out something. Also, too, something I would just want to point out in this movie, and this is a pretty major spoiler. I did not realize that Beavis's last name was Beavis. There's a scene in the movie towards the end where they go to their old house, essentially, and I think they said it's Beavis's mother's house, and they said her name was, I don't remember her first name, but it was like something, and then her last name was Beavis. I remember me and my buddies were watching this, and we all just looked at each other like, holy shit, his last name's Beavis? Like, one, I did not know that was his house. For some reason, I always assumed it was Butt-Head or his parents' house. But then, yeah, like, it kind of blew my mind. I didn't know his last name was Beavis. That's funny. I love the fact that I got my mind blown by a movie called Beavis and Butt-Head Do the Universe. Oh my god, yeah. Yeah, and just like I said, like, I think because the fact that I was with a couple of my friends and we watched it all together, I think that was probably one reason why we were laughing so hard at it. We were laughing like out loud at this movie at several moments. And again, I want to talk about the jokes, but I also don't want to give them away too much, because this movie really is great. It's great in its own way. Kind of like Jackass Forever. It's that stupid kind of movie that you can't help but love it. Yeah, my overall thoughts on this film, I would definitely say check it out for sure. It's on Paramount Plus now. I think it's been out for about 2 weeks at the time of this recording, so it's definitely worth checking out. If you're a fan of Beavis and Butt-Head, I mean, it's going to be the same old formula that you've seen before, and you're going to love it for it. Even if you're not, I would still say give it a shot. It's still a good movie. It's got some pretty clever commentary on like today's society and stuff like that. There's some pretty funny moments, like when they go to college and they walk into this classroom and they kind of get schooled by some of the students and the teacher in there. And of course, typical Beavis and Butt-Head fashion, it doesn't sink in quite the way that the people there were hoping. And it leads to some really great comedic moments between the two characters. As well as there's a great scene where they end up in prison. Again, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but yeah, it's so funny, and it kind of reinforces my statement before, like where I said, like, even though Beavis and Butt-Head are technically the dumbest characters in the show, the other supporting characters throughout the story are also pretty stupid in their own way, and just the way that they respond to Beavis and Butt-Head, it's funny, and it makes for some really good comedy. And yeah, I got to hand it to Mike Judge. I mean, there's a pretty good cast in this, for sure. Like, there's Gary Cole is one of the, I think one of the federal agents that's hunting Beavis and Butt-Head. He's great as always. He's a great voice actor. Stephen Root, of course, who played Bill Dotrieve in King of the Hill. He's in this. He plays a few voices as well. Yeah, like there's some definitely great talent behind this movie for sure. But Mike Judge, I definitely want to point out for sure, like, as Beavis and Butt-Head, he's been playing these characters for, like, God, I think almost 30 years now. And he still sounds pretty much the same now as he did back in the 90s. It's amazing, like, how much his voice hasn't changed at all. So yeah, I got to give him props for that. Like, he hasn't missed a beat as the two characters. He still manages to deliver their lines fantastically. Just their little chuckles they do throughout the movie, of course, their iconic laughs, he still has that down perfect. So yeah, I mean, I would say definitely check this movie out. If nothing else, if you've got nothing better to do on a Saturday night and you just want to toss back a few beers and just have a good time, I think this movie is right up your alley for sure. So the next topic I wanted to discuss, and this really wasn't something that I was going to talk about, but the trailer for this just dropped a couple days ago, as I was working on this podcast episode. So before, in one of my previous episodes, I had discussed my top 10 anime series, and on that list was Trigun. And I just saw that a trailer released for a new Trigun series coming out in 2023, so next year, and it's called Trigun Stampede. Now, we got the teaser trailer for it. I watched it a couple of times just to kind of get a good feel for the series, and I kind of want to give my overall thoughts on what I thought based on the trailer. So as you know, the original Trigun anime, one of my top 10 favorite anime series. I love that show. It's one of my all-time favorites. Surprisingly, I don't have it on Blu-ray. I need to get it though. But it's one of my all-time favorite anime series ever. And I've been wanting more content from it ever since they released the Badlands Rumble back in 2010, which is kind of depressing that it came out that long ago. For some reason, I kept thinking that it was more recent. But yeah, that was the last Trigun content that we got, and I know the manga series was finished, I think, in 2007, Trigun Maximum. So I was really hoping we'd get a new series, and it looks like we are going to. So again, not a lot's known about this beyond what we saw in the teaser trailer for it. Basically, in the trailer, we get to see it shows Vash and his brother Knives from the show, which, if you remember from the original series, that's something that's not revealed until very late into the anime series. As part of Vash's past, we get to see him and Knives, and of course the iconic character Rim, the surrogate mother for both of them. And it almost kind of looks like this series may be focusing on Vash and Knives' past. I don't know if that's going to be like what the entire series is going to be about. We do get to see a scene. There's a part where Vash is fighting somebody with a gun, and it's not revealed who they are, but we get to see Vash show off some of his gunslinger skills in this. The biggest thing that I notice, of course, is that this is not traditional 2D animation, but 3D animation. I believe this is from the studio Orange, which I think is the same studio that did Beastars on Netflix, which I haven't seen yet, but I've heard it's getting a lot of buzz. So I'm going to go ahead and be perfectly honest. I'm not sure how I feel about the style of this anime. I'm not particularly fond of 3D animation. Now, that's not to say that I don't like it. I really loved the Arcane series on Netflix. I thought that was good. I think 3D animation, when used well, can definitely be effective, and in some ways can even be better than 2D animation. But since the original Trigun series was a 2D animated series, and since it is based off the manga series, I was really hoping for something, I guess, a little bit more traditional 2D animation. What I was kind of hoping for was maybe like the Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood treatment. Basically, it was a similar situation with Full Metal Alchemist. The original series came out in 2003, the anime series, but the manga at the time was not complete. So the show creators had to take a lot of creative liberties when coming up with the plot of that show. So of course, the ending of it, the second half of the show, mostly deviates quite a bit from the manga series. Brotherhood came out in 2010, I believe, and by then the manga was completed, so that anime series Brotherhood followed the manga much more closely, and in my opinion, Brotherhood is definitely the superior anime series. The first one isn't bad, I just think Brotherhood is just superior. So that's what I was hoping for with the new Trigun series, but unfortunately it kind of looks like it might potentially be, I mean, not a lot's known about it. From what little information I could find on it, it sounds like it's potentially going to be a reboot of the original anime. So I'm hoping maybe what we saw in the teaser trailer is just that small segment between Vash and Knives. I don't know. Whether or not that's going to be just one small segment of this story, or if that is going to be the overall story of this series, that's hard to say. I am a little concerned about that, because I remember in the original series, the backstory with Rem and Knives was something that was not revealed until very late into the story. And it was kind of a big plot point because it gave us insight into Vash's past, because up until that point he had been a pretty mysterious character. So I'm curious to know like how this is going to impact the story, revealing this, such a big plot point this early, immediately. I'm definitely hoping that the entire series isn't going to be about that, just because it was such a small part of the original anime series. I don't know if you could create an entire series based on that one plot point, but I guess we'll see. If it is going to be a reboot of the original series, I'm definitely excited for it. It's hard to say. They don't really show any other characters that I could recognize, like the two girls from the insurance company, Millie and I can't remember the other girl's name. And of course, there's no Nicholas D. Wolfwood in this, who was like my favorite character from the original anime. I didn't see any of the gung-ho guns like Legato Blue Summers, so I guess we'll see. But again, this was just the first teaser trailer, so who knows? As time goes on, maybe more will be revealed of it. But as of right now, I mean, any new Trigun content, I'm all for. So I will definitely check this out when it comes, like when it releases. But yeah, I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic on this. I don't think the animation looks bad. They did change Vash's iconic look. He doesn't have the spiked up blonde hair that he normally does, like in the original series. Instead, his hair is kind of lays down. He still has his red trench coat, but it looks more obvious that he has a robotic arm, at least from what I could see in this series. So we'll have to see. A lot of the trailer you see mostly Vash and Knives as kids, so we'll kind of see how it goes. But I mean, I'm going to keep an open mind. Like I said, I love the original Trigun series. Anything Trigun related, I'm all for it. So I'm willing to give this the benefit of the doubt. I'm just nervous about how the execution's going to be. All right, guys, I think that's going to conclude my podcast for tonight. Once again, I am on Anchor, Spotify, and YouTube. Please feel free to like and subscribe, and also follow me on Twitter and Facebook. All right, guys, I'll catch you all next time.